It's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, we'd sure appreciate it if you did that while you're here. Either way, let's get into it. Last Thursday, Tony Bennett announced his retirement from Virginia. And then on Friday, held a press conference in Charlottesville. Norlander was there, and he wrote about it for CBSSports.com. Smooth 15-minute read. You can find it on either of our Twitter feeds. Norlander, folks already know what I think of Tony Bennett retiring from Virginia at the age of 55 because I did a 14-minute solo pod on it. So I want to start by asking for your general thoughts on a 55-year-old national championship winning coach walking away from the sport by his own admission because he's become uncomfortable with the so-called state of the game.
Yeah. Wild week last week, GP. I was actually at Duke practice. Duke practice had ended. I was about 2 minutes away from supposedly interviewing Tyrese Proctor. That did not happen because Tony Bennett retires. It kind of turns things sideways there. It's coincidence would have it. I happened to be like right next to John Shire as he learned it as well. He was coming over to say hi at the end of practice there. And then I made the pivot to drive to Charlottesville. And yeah, if you have not read it already, please go read the story that I did from Charlottesville. Tony was gracious enough to give me about 30 minutes of one-on-one interview time after his press conference, which he did not have to do, but I appreciate that all the same and was able to get some additional insights there. And obviously, this is something of an earthquake to the sport because of the timing more than anything. Like Tony Bennett retires no matter what. It's a big story, but having happened so close to it, to the start of the season, obviously, really opened up Bennett to as much criticism as he's ever faced, short of losing in 2018 to UMBC, which I think was obviously the high point or the low point, I guess, of criticism toward Tony Bennett. But he was pretty thorough with me on why this had to be now. And I still think there's room if you want to critique the timing of the move. I do get it because it was less than 3 weeks before the start of the season. I'm going to read you his full quote to me here. I put some of this in the story, but I wanted to be sure, since he was going to give me the time, to directly ask him. I basically said, Tony, understandably, you are getting criticized by some for doing this now when you could have done it in April. You could have even done it in the first or second week of August. But now in doing this, you have a roster here, players who chose to play for you. What's your response to that? And here's what he said. He said, quote, "It wasn't like I got this set and I planned this date. If you're battling things and you're not all in and have the passion to give, you have to know who you are and you have to be all in with everything. If you know you're fighting yourself in this because you're still recruiting, you're still involved with stuff, you're going to have to keep building, and you're always worrying about what's next." And I felt, even in the fall, I felt things I haven't felt for a long time, or maybe I've been battling and coaching some of my perspectives. Sometimes, my anger, and people say, oh, you don't get angry, but I felt myself becoming a little more transactional in mindset at times. And then I'd catch myself, but I felt that battle being waged inside, and I never want to be like that. That's why I'm not equipped for this. I'm like, man, what's going to happen if this guy doesn't play? All that. What do we got to do to add this? And you got people saying, oh, this guy's going to become available. It'll cost this much, all that stuff. And so I just evaluated all of it. And the fact that even looking at myself and some of those practices and how I felt, and maybe some of the outbursts I had, and what I even was thinking in my mind and then getting back, that was like this internal battle going on. What was the indicator? If you would have spent the whole weekend with me, I think you would have been pretty clear on it. When you have that battle, if you're not all in and locked, I didn't. Then he was kind of silent here. I have ellipsis in this. I'm not eliminating any of the quotes. He just kind of was continuing to think through the answer. He said, I didn't want to have the regret of being 80% of what I could be, because it's a fine line here. We don't have all the other things others have in terms of 5 stars. We've got good players, but it's a way that you have to build them. If I'm 70%, 80%, that's not fair to the players. You know what? This staff, they're the ones that are thinking that they can handle this model better than I can. And until it changes, no one will be able to handle it fully. But that's what led to it at this time. End quote. I don't want to go too long of a monologue here with you, GP, because I know you gave some thoughts, but I do want some additional ones from you as well. Tony did refer to something in that quote that he kind of mentioned again later on. He had, I think the doubt started to creep into his mind because for whatever reason, like he found himself maybe a bit more vocal, frustrated, angry in recent practices. And he didn't tell me this, but having talked to him in the past and knowing his father, like his father were really burned very, very hot. And sometimes Tony would channel that for good. And sometimes he didn't like how he could become as inflamed as his dad famously could be. And I think all of that, I think he took some of his behavior to say, okay, I am finding myself in an environment here where I'm not who I want to be. And after Virginia had a brief little fall break last weekend, not just coming off this weekend, but the weekend before that, he goes away with his wife and they go away for 60 hours or whatever. They drive 2.5 hours down to the southeastern part of Virginia. And unexpected, like he didn't take this trip, and Laurel, his wife, told me as well, they didn't take this trip like for a come to Jesus moment. It almost just, he was reflecting and then everything really bubbled up. And then I mean, I take Tony at his word for this. He was the guilt that would have been associated with, let's say he made his decision to retire a week ago, right? But he keeps it private and he knows in his heart of hearts, okay, this is going to be my last season and I will make this publicly known in March and no one's going to know except me and my wife, right? He could have done that. To him, the guilt associated with making that decision and not letting anyone know, and knowing that he was not going to be able to give himself in the same way that he had for the past 15 years. He couldn't do that. He just refused to do it. And so while this was a very hard choice for him to make, he flat out said, if I'm giving either 70%, 80%, 90% of who I am, but I'm not all in, it doesn't matter that the season's upcoming and I get to coach the games, I get to run the practices. There's still recruiting that you have to do every single week, if not every single day. That's still going to be part of the job. And I wouldn't have felt right not being entirely forthcoming with the players, the high school recruits that would be looking to come to Virginia and do all that. So from his framing, I do get it. It puts Virginia in a very tough spot, no doubt about it. Ron Sanchez is now the interim head coach, and he's known Tony Bennett for well over 2 decades. And I was able to sit in on Sanchez's first official practice as I sat there and wrote this column. And he was not suffering fools. Like, it was a intense practice. Rick Carlisle, obviously a Virginia alum and Indiana Pacer coach, he attended the press conference. He talked to the team before it started. He sat there and watched the whole thing. And it was an efficient, well-run practice, and Ron Sanchez was not messing around. So from my impressions on it's just one practice, it certainly wasn't this is kind of weird, Tony's not here anymore. It was like, season goes on, game continues, we're going to keep this going. But for Tony and to him to get to this decision, certainly stunning. And he's the youngest GP. That's what I keep coming back to. Like Kay, Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim, all in their 70s. Roy Williams' timing of his retirement was on April Fool's Day, and it caught everyone by surprise. Jay Wright caught everyone by surprise, but even still, Jay was like 5 years older than Tony is. Tony was 55, still coaching in the prime of his career, and he makes this decision. Obviously, quite the stunner there, but he kind of lived his truth, and I appreciated him opening up there. I don't blame him for retiring the way he did, because I think it was in his heart of hearts, and he's a deep man of faith, what he needed to do. But two things can be true at once. In doing so, I do think Virginia as a team is put in a tough spot here, and I'll be interested to see how they adapt, because I think the fan base with Tony would have expected a top 4 finish in the ACC, and now if they really step back and are realistic, the entire outlook on the season ahead, let alone what the program will be over the next half decade without Tony there, obviously drastically gets altered.
The timing isn't ideal. Let's discuss that part, because I didn't at all on the solo pod, I don't believe. The timing isn't ideal. I think we can all agree on that. I think Tony would tell you that. But I believe him. And I believe him for 2 reasons. One is that he's never given me any reason not to believe him. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is not a guy who has a reputation of being calculating and backstabbing and manipulative. His reputation is as good as any college basketball coach I've ever covered. People universally respect this man. And the reason I believe he's telling you the truth is because I just don't have any reason not to believe he's telling you the truth. we live in a world now where everybody's so cynical about everything. Like nobody believes anything anymore.
Mhm.
Everybody's cynical about everything. You'll remember we were at Peach Jam the day there was an assassination attempt on the former president's life. And what initially stood out to me about that day is we were all looking at the exact same thing on our phones, and half the people there didn't believe it was real. It was just like, that's just set up, or that's not real. It isn't, I don't know where it started exactly. I do believe it was heightened by the fake news phenomenon, but we live in a world where everybody is cynical about everything. Nobody believes anything is as it appears. And I just don't want to live my life like that. I'd rather be gullible sometimes than cynical all the time. So I believe Tony Bennett. Why? Because he never gave me a reason not to believe him. Secondly, you ready for this? And this is the one I haven't heard somebody else point out. To believe that he knew he was retiring in March or April and think that he spent the past several months doing all the stuff he's been doing only to know he's walking away in October is insane. Think about what you're purporting to be the truth. Yeah. Tony Bennett just sat down and told us how much he hates every part of this job now. You really think he decided?
Not every part, but a lot of it, yes. And I want to be clear. Let's be fair to him. He didn't hate the entire job. He hated what the job had become. Yes.
Okay. Tony Bennett just sat down and spent a lot of time telling us exactly how he hates certain aspects of what the job had become. Those are exactly the aspects of the job he's been doing for the past few months. All right. Does it make any sense to think a 55-year-old man who hates so many parts of this job is going to agree to continue to do the job for another 4 or 5 months simply so his buddy can be the interim coach for a year? Does that make any sense?
It does. It obviously does not. And he signed a contract. He did address this as well. He signed a contract extension over the summer. I think in part to quell. You and I both know there was a lot of Tony Bennett might retire. There was a lot of that in like February, March, and then like I talked with Tony about it off the record in April. It doesn't matter now. He has actually retired. And like he was thinking about it. He was considering it. But when I talked to him in April, he expressed a lot of the stuff that he expressed at his press conference. But there was still hope that the sport and how college athletics is functioning and, stuff to put in for mental health for student athletes, which he is like extremely worried about. He actually echoes Tom Izzo on a lot of that stuff. He thought like, all right, a couple more years, like if we really can get this thing settled, like maybe we got a chance. And he tricked himself into believing it. But quite clearly, there was enough of that was compiling in the past few weeks, GP, that led him to do this. And obviously he didn't take it lightly. It's a damn retirement there. But you make a very, very good point, because no coach that was a 50-50 decision would willingly opt into doing this for an entire offseason only to say, you know what, ain't for me. I'm out of here on October 17th.
You know what the truth is? The most obvious explanation, the only one that's sensible, is that he has been fighting himself. He has known for a while he's not comfortable with where the sport's at and has questioned for a while whether he can continue to succeed at the level at which he's been succeeding in this new landscape, and has been wondering for a while if he even wants to. You put it in the column. You and Tony had a conversation about this in April. It's been on his mind for a while. But you know what he did? He's been fighting with himself, seeing if he can snap out of it, seeing if it'll get better, seeing if something will change. Have you ever been in a terrible relationship? Whether it's just a boyfriend, girlfriend, high school stuff, a terrible marriage, anything. You don't typically, the moment you realize this is not good, just break it off and you go, hey, let's keep working at it. Let me see if next week's better. You keep fighting, you hold on to something. Well, like maybe, and then you get to a point where you go, it's time. It is what it is. It's not getting better. My feelings aren't changing. I really think he had a moment of clarity where it was just like, okay, it's time. I've been fighting myself. I've been trying to push through. I've been on some level hoping that I'll wake up and feel different about this. Fighting, internally battling. And then just ultimately decided today's the day I'm going to, for lack of a better analogy, serve the divorce papers. It's time to move on. It's time for me to go. I don't think this is manipulative. I don't think it was coordinated. I just don't. Like, just the cynics can continue to be cynical.
Yeah.
Again, I cannot overemphasize this. Even if you want to, I just believe Tony Bennett because he's never given me a reason not to believe it. But beyond that, if you say, I don't know if I can trust the guy, okay. I'm telling you, it makes nobody would work a job they no longer enjoy for an entire summer if they knew they were walking away from it a few weeks before the start of it, just to ensure their friend gets an interim tag. That is not a normal thing that anybody would do. It is not what I believe Tony Bennett did. I think Tony Bennett has been battling this for a while, thinking about it for a while, and ultimately came to a conclusion. It is time to go now. I wish I would have reached this conclusion months ago.
Right.
I would have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of energy, but it took me to now to finally get here, and now I know what I have to do. I take him at his word, because to not take him at his word doesn't make any sense at all. You just have to be a real weirdo to not to think that he's been calculating behind the scenes all off season on Zoom calls with people he doesn't even know to try to get Ron Sanchez an interim tag. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Again, I find Tony to be about as stand-up of a guy in the profession and as honest of a guy. And he even said, and then Ron said the same thing when I talked to him before practice. He hoped it would be Ron or Jason Williford. He even told me, I don't think this is in the story, but like Tony tried to get Jason, the head coach in waiting tag, like 4 or 5 years ago, but the athletic director, Carla Williams, wouldn't make that move. And so ultimately it was Carla's decision, and she even made it without necessarily Tony's retiring. It wasn't necessarily his approval. He was hopeful it would be either one of those. And now Ron gets it. But I do get the criticism. It is a pretty damn big move of humility to do this and step away when Tony still knows, like, even at 80%, he's probably the best coach for Virginia at this stage. In fact, when we first kind of started going on the record with the interview, he's like, I'll try and give you whatever else I can, but I gave so much out there. Like, he was obviously emotional, fighting back tears. Although that he did also set me up, but I'll get to that in a second before we move on to my team rankings there. But he said, quote, until there's parameters, I know I can't do it. And that's the whole deal here. So I think sometimes you almost talk yourself into things as you're doing it. Like, I can do this. I'm equipped. We can adjust. And you kind of tell yourself certain stuff and you start believing, yep, I can. But when you kind of step back and look, can I be as effective as I need to be? Am I fully aligned with how it has to be for this university, for these young men? Can I give everything? Can we build a program this way? Or is it more designed for the old model? And he just doesn't think that he's equipped to do it. I know there are other coaches that feel the same way as he does, that haven't decided to make this step yet, but are certainly no doubt thinking about it. And I tell you, I go back to the humility point. One of the last things he said to me was, this was never mine and it was time to give it back. And that's the piece that I have. Not a lot of coaches view running a Division I men's basketball program that way. So it's a bummer to lose him. It really is. I told this to him basically as I said goodbye here and got ready to write the story. On a personal note, as a media member, like, I just hate that I love that Jay Wright works for CBS now, but like the guys that we get to cover that are respectful, seemingly do it, quote unquote, the right way, and are, that make the job more fun to do and to talk about here on the pod and to write about. Tony Bennett, he is not, it's not that he doesn't like the media. He's fine with the media, but this guy does not ever want any one iota additional morsel of attention than is absolutely required. And so because of that, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say to hammer home, like, Tony Bennett is not going to text me and say, hey, GP, if you got a tweet that, we've won 7 of 8, if you could get that out there and make sure people understand it, I'd appreciate it. Like that. That's not coming. We do get those. It ain't coming from Tony Bennett.
That's right. And to the ones that do it, I get it. That's fine. You're constantly fighting a uphill battle. I get all that, but that's just not, it's not Tony. And so like in 2016, Virginia infamously blew a second half lead against Syracuse in the Elite Eight in Chicago. And I was there. And the day before, like, I got a lot of time. This was the first like big story I was ever going to write on Tony. I thought Virginia was going to the Final Four. And so I sat with his sister and I sat with his father. And then I got a little time with Tony. This is after the Sweet 16 and before the Elite Eight. And I got just a ton of material that I eventually wrote to a degree in 2019 when they actually made the Final Four. But on a personal note, I've always appreciated his trust and respect in that regard. And it's a downer to lose a coach of his stature, and he won't be the last. We got to get on to my rankings, but I do have to at least inject this as well. About an hour before the press conference on Thursday, because he retires. I was supposed to be at North Carolina Friday. A shout out to Steve Kirshner, who one of the best SIDs in the business. He went through this with Dean Smith back in '97 when Dean Smith retired. Now, Dean Smith was under different circumstances, and but he retired, gave the job to Bill Guthridge, and on we go. But Kirshner found me. He texted me. It must have been 15 minutes within the Bennett stuff becoming public, and was like, "If you need to go to Charlottesville, don't worry about it. Like, we got you covered and all that good stuff." So eventually, make the decision to go to Charlottesville. And I texted Tony, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be there tomorrow. Just so you know, I'm driving up from Durham." And then he's like, "You don't need to come here. This is not necessary." I was like, "Nope. Your decision is in to retire. My decision is in to come to this thing. I'm seeing you tomorrow." So then an hour before the press conference, he goes, "Hey, I hope you're going to ask me a question," or something like that. And I was like, "I'm parking right now. Yeah, I'll ask." Well, little did I know, but I like the point that he made. Mm-hmm. But the room was like, first of all, GP, about for 6 or 7 minutes before he walked in, like, it was, you walk in, people are talking. And then as it got to like 10:55, 10:56, like, it got quiet. It got like, this is a funeral home on the day of a wake quiet. Like, it was eerily quiet in the room there. And then he walks in, standing ovation from friends and family that were there. Obviously, he gets to talking, it's emotional, and then he starts taking questions. And so I was going to, and I did eventually ask, he's 55, why doing this now after other guys that did it before? Like, what makes you sure you have 100% confidence in the situation? But before I can even get this question off, Tony calls me out for my DMB fandom. Right there, obviously, Dave Matthews Band's from Charlottesville. He has a relationship with a couple people in the DMB group in general, and that was a funny moment. But I did not know it was coming, and I was in my head, I'm like, what the hell is Tony Bennett doing to me right now as I'm trying to ask him a legitimate question? But the point he was making was he got the job in April of 2009, and then I went and I fact checked him to make sure. He said the week he got the job was actually 2 weeks later, Tony. But DMB played like a hometown show at JPJ Arena, and the offices are right there. Like, if you know the arena, if you've been there, like they're in the building. And his point was, like, the crowd was filling in, it was packed. He peeked behind the curtain, and he seemed to remember that, like, someone in security might have been giving him a little bit of grief because whoever was working security might have been doing it for an outside company, not someone that works in the building. But he was like, man, this is the hometown band, and they're packing up this building, and like, it's not been like this with basketball, and it wasn't like that for the first couple of years. But if I can do it right, maybe we can make it happen that way. And he did. I mean, he really did. The quality of Virginia basketball and its relevance for basically the past 10 years, and the dominance within the ACC parish, we may never see it again with Virginia hoops, because he has a claim, statistically and otherwise, to being the most successful coach in that league for basically a decade going. And so for Virginia fans watching and listening that are probably still legitimately in mourning, like, we get it, no doubt about it. But that's a biggie. That was our college hoops October surprise, no doubt about it. And yeah.
I guess I'd say one last thing before we move on. And because when the news breaks, and you're exactly right, like, it's not good to lose Tony Bennett. And I don't mean because my life will change at all. It won't. Like, my job won't change at all. My life won't change at all, whether Tony Bennett is the coach at Virginia or not. It does stink for the sport to lose the idea of Tony Bennett. And why? Because when this story broke, you had a lot of people tweeting things like, let's not turn this into an indictment of the sport. Let's not turn this into an indictment of college basketball. Well, that is quite literally what it is. It is an indictment of the sport.
Every subsequent high-profile championship-winning coach retires at GP. Like it just keeps adding up. It's adding up. It's adding up. Even continue, but even Nick Saban said this in his retirement reasoning with Alabama just last year or earlier this year.
Right. It is an indictment. You know, I can appreciate people trying to be protective of the sport. This is an indictment of the sport. And I've seen some other people say, hey, like before everybody tries to make this bigger than it is, there's a long line of people who would, you know, be jumping at the opportunity to be an ACC head coach and make millions. And obviously that is true. But to focus on that is to so wildly miss the point. Sure, we can find somebody else to coach basketball under these set of circumstances. We will always be able to do that. But is it good to lose a 55-year-old national championship coach who is universally respected and considered one of the greatest teachers of this sport? Is it good to lose him off of a college campus? We used to only lose coaches at this age or younger because they were off to the NBA. Now they're telling us, I'm not off to the NBA. I just don't want to do this anymore. Jay Wright's told us that. I don't think Jay Wright would be retired today if the state of the sport was different. I know Tony Bennett wouldn't be retired today if the state of the sport was different. So sure, we can find somebody else to coach Villanova and find somebody else to coach Villanova. And when the next young coach walks away, we can find somebody else to coach that school too. But you could apply that same logic anywhere. It doesn't make it sensible. You ready for this? What if Shohei Ohtani stood up today or after the season or 3 weeks before next season and just said, I'm just really not comfortable with the sport of baseball right now and where it's at. And this is not the sport I got into. I've made enough money. I'm going to go spend time with my family. We could find somebody else to put in a Dodger uniform and let him DH. But like we just lost Shohei Ohtani from the sport for no obviously great reasons. That's what people who have the power to bring about change and who actually care about the sport, that's what they need to be focusing on. Not can we fill the spot with somebody other than Jay Wright and Tony Bennett because there's a long list of people happy to make millions of dollars doing this job or any other job. I got you. But if we were to put together a list of 10 coaches, maybe even 5, just a few years ago, who were the best coaches that are also universally respected and liked by their colleagues, both Jay Wright and Tony Bennett would be on that list pretty high, maybe 1, 2. And they have both voluntarily walked away from the sport, in part, if not entirely, because of where the sport is right now. That is something that should be troubling to the people who have the power, because like you said, and you're right, they won't be the last ones. They might be the biggest ones and the most accomplished ones, but I had multiple coaches text me over the weekend and indicate they respect what Tony is doing, and they can't wait to do the same thing.
All right. On that note, let's talk teams, baby. I got a top 101 teams list that we released just hours before Tony Bennett's retirement became public. I'm not moving my Virginia at number 32 spot. I'm a man of principle. Absolutely. Let's get into that. But Nada, how about that word from our partners? Here we go. Come on now.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Norlander's top 101 players list has published. He's got Alabama at number 1, Houston at number 2, Kansas at number 3. So we've got the same top 3. Your top 3, same as my top 3, and the top 25 and 1, but we have them in a different order. Let's start with Alabama. Why'd you go Crimson Tide number 1?
Alabama has our pick for the preseason National Player of the Year, Mark Sears, having someone as accomplished as him, making the Final Four a year ago. Alabama did really well in the portal. They have probably a defensive upgrade coming, and that offense should rank top 5 in the country again. It seemed practical to me, GP, to pick them. I also, as I tend to do, I try and at least push a little bit against groupthink. So I knowing that Kansas was the preseason number 1 in the AP top 25 and the GP top 25 and 1, and knowing that Houston is the across the board preseason pick in the metrics, I decided even before we knew the KenPom rankings and all that good stuff and evanmia.com, all that, I decided probably a month ago that I was going to go with Alabama at number 1. And put simply, NATO's coming off Final Four, really good momentum for that program. Could have the best player in the sport. A lot of veterans on that roster, some 5-star talent coming in. Alabama obviously seen pretty much universally across the board as a preseason top 5 team. This is obviously no big stretch, but I go with the Crimson Tide at 1. I go Houston. I'll be real quick here. I'll go Houston number 2. Kelvin Sampson has finished second at KenPom. We mentioned on a recent episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my entire top 50 here. We'll get to the other half, the 50 to 101, after we dig into some of this. But Houston
will
2,
we? For real?
we're not going through every team. GP, take it easy.
Jesus.
So people can look at it.
This is going to turn into a solo
over there.
It's going to turn into a solo pod too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll go solo pod on if you need me to. I'll go. I Kansas number 3. Man, do I love Houston 2, Kansas 3. And then UConn, you have to give UConn. Where do you have UConn? GP 5?
5.
They're 5.
5.
I wrestled UConn 4, 5, or 6.
For the record, UConn fans, I have UConn going undefeated this season. Undefeated national champions.
But they're not the preseason number 1 team, just so everyone's aware. He's got UConn not losing a game, but not ranking them 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the preseason, just so we're we're aware of all of that. I have Duke at 5, as I said.
The explanation is that I believe, I don't know anything. I believe Kansas and Houston and Alabama are better, but I also know that UConn never loses. So
they have lost again early, just so we're clear.
I don't remember.
Venturing into Michael Jordan never missed a buzzer-beating attempt. It has happened. We do have video of it. I just want to be clear.
I'm not sure, but I'll take your word for it. Continue.
If you're not watching and you're listening, I'm going to rattle off my 1 to 25 in order, and GP can pick apart what he wants to inside the top 25. Bama 1, Houston 2, Kansas 3, UConn 4, Duke 5, Baylor 6, Purdue 7, Tennessee 8, Gonzaga 9, UNC 10, St. John's. Let's go, Johnnies. I got the Johnnies at 11. I have Wake Forest, hello, Hunter Salas at 12, Marquette is 13, Arizona I have at 14. I think I am higher than anyone in the country on Baylor at 6, Johnny's at 11, Wake at 12, Kentucky I have at 15. I have UCLA at 16. I might be higher on the Bruins than anyone in the country. I have Creighton at 17. I'm definitely higher on Michigan than anyone in the country. I have the Wolverines at 18. Hello, Boise State sitting there at 19. They're going to win a tournament game. It's never happened. Leon Rice is getting it done this year. I have Indiana at 20. I have Iowa State at 21. There might be Iowa State fans outside of my house right now. Illinois 22, Florida 23, Kansas State 24, and then Arkansas 25. In my entire rankings, I think the only 2 teams I agree with KenPom are Gonzaga at 9 and Arkansas at 25. Lay it on me.
Okay. What I'm about to say has got nothing to do with Boise State because I consider myself a Bronco on some level.
I know, because you have a pair of Boise State shorts for the past.
That's exactly right.
Basically the basis of your entire philosophy on Leon Rice's program.
I rocked them as recently as Saturday, okay? I feel like I'm a Bronco. Plus, I would like my alma mater to one day be in a league with them if they can't one day be in a league with other people.
Before you say what you're going to say, let me also say this.
Okay.
I am because there is a difference here. I am predicting what the landscape will look like essentially on Selection Sunday right in there. I'm not predicting the state of these teams on October 21st on the first day of the season. This is a forecast for what I think they will be once everyone's played 28, 30, 32 games. Go ahead.
Okay. I love Boise State. I got some awesome shorts. I cannot understand how you could rationalize having, based off of anything that's happened, any of the personnel, anything. Like, just give me one thing that rationalizes Boise State 2 spots ahead of an Iowa State team that is returning the top 4 scores from a 29-win team that earned a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament.
No doubt about it. I like Boise State to easily win the Mountain West, potentially have as good of a player on their roster, Tyson Degenhart, as Taman Lipsey could be for Iowa State. I like Iowa State plenty. I even talked to TJ Otzelberger on Friday because
it's too late. It's too late now.
No, he's fine.
This is gone. Lines have been crossed. I
talked to TJ because, as coincidence would have it, this past summer, in fact, prior to Friday, the last time I saw Tony Bennett was in a restaurant, and he and TJ were having dinner, and so we were kind of reflecting on that moment when I walked in and they happened to be there, and they were swapping stories and all that kind of stuff. So I got a couple quotes from TJ if they need to apply anytime soon. Anyway, yeah, here's my thing on this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you justify it right now? It's hard to do. However, as I make a point of this every year, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm not, there are 4 to 5 teams every single season, every season that are in the preseason top 25 that not only some aren't there at the end of the season, some don't even make the tournament. It's going to happen. So I do push against this idea that because this team's in the 2 to 5 range across the board, this team's in the 8 to 12 range, all these teams are bunched in, then I might as well do it too. I still have Iowa State easily making the tournament. I have Iowa State finishing top 5 in what might be the best league in the country. But I do think coming off a year where they were very, very good, and I think that they've got a chance at defensively being very, very good again. I'm just not bought into the idea, not yet, that the offense is going to be upgraded to such a guaranteed level to ensure that Iowa State will be a top 10, top 15 team in the country. They were number 1 in adjusted defensive efficiency last season. I'm not rejecting. I want to be very, very clear on this. I don't reject the notion that Iowa State will be very good this season. By having them 21st, I think if you're a preseason top 25 team, that by indications that you're going to be very good. I am going to push back on the idea that Iowa State will be the first, second, or third best team in the Big 12. And so in doing that, yes, they fell a little bit further down. I pushed Boise State up. I happen to believe in them big time. I think that they are going to be somewhere in the 4 or 5 seed conversation range. And so, yes, I understand the purpose of your question. Come at me. Iowa State fans, Lord knows, have found me. Iowa State and Auburn. It remains a fierce battle right now. I've got the Auburn Tigers at 27 because I'm not yet convinced of the roster up and down in the context of the SEC, but that is a short answer on the Cyclones. And by the way, these are just predictions. They're meant to be fun. Fans, some of them you take it way too seriously, but it's because of that passion that we love you, because you read our stuff, you listen to our podcast, you watch college basketball, you follow all the coverage. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna own up to it. But if I'm not, tell you what, Arkansas fans still aren't hungry after the crow they had to eat last year when I dared not put Arkansas in the top 25 and they finished outside the top 100 at KenPom. And that's just one example.
Here's what I think. Maybe this is where we have different approaches, which is fine. None of this stuff is as serious as I'm trying to make it out.
For sure. No doubt.
You are just saying, hey, I don't really care. I'm predicting. And I'm like, you got to care. You got to respect what's in front of you. Don't
say that I don't care. I'm ranking 101. You're getting to 26 you're getting to 26 and you're going for the bullpen here.
You don't care.
I'm going 101 and I'm considering probably 150 teams at that point.
What I mean is that I would personally find it impossible with my approach to look at a team that just won 29 games, was a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, returns the top 4 scorers, and think that can't be. And I could not wrap my head around not having that. How about this? I got them where I got them. I think top 6 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm 6 in the country, which lines up with the computers. How about this? And I don't mean you.
You can mean me. I will not be.
I mean you. I mean you.
Let's go.
Okay. I mean you. If you were sitting over there in your little stupid Dave Matthews shirt, and I told you,
keep Dave out of this. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, by the way. Take it easy.
Houston. If you were sitting over there in your little stupid Dave Matthews shirt, and I told you, hey, you realize Houston won 29 games last year, got a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and the top 4 scorers are back, you would rank them number 1. You would.
Correct, but they've also had a longer sustained track of success under Kelvin Sampson, and I like Houston's record better. I mean, Houston's roster better. What?
All right, let me text TJ.
You should. TJ's aware of all of this, by the way. TJ thanked me because, frankly, Iowa State was getting too much good pub, and they need a little motivation. I'm more than happy to supply it.
Yeah, when I see that, I just go, well, I mean, Jesus Christ, they were one of the 8 best teams in the country last year. The top 4 scorers are back. I can't put them down at 21. That makes no sense.
I get it. But I have to at least open myself up to the inevitability that there are teams, be it top 25 in the metrics or the AP rankings, they're just not going to be there come March. And so I'm not going to just toss out. And I also try my best not to be too aware of everyone else's rankings, because I don't want to be influenced by it. Like I have I knew when I built this thing, like I knew some of the teams that were going to be highly picked, highly ranked. I knew all of that, but I try and come at it as organically as possible. And oh, by the way, it's not just me sitting down picking teams out of a hat. Like I am contacting coaching staffs. I'm trying to get a sense from them about how true, like off record, how good do you think your team's going to be?
Cops are coming for you right now.
You can hear that. There is.
That's the Ames Police Department coming for you right now.
The Ames Police Department. They've been driving a whole long way. Now get that top 50 back on the screen. I need that. Get it back. Thank you. Here's my 26 to 50. Although I tell you what, hold on. Before we get on to 26 to 50. Do you like any of my spiciness, my zestiness here?
I don't like any. I don't like
St.
any
John's
of this.
at 11?
I don't like any of this. No, I could see St. John's being good. I could see Wake Forest being good. See, I don't mind that stuff because that's just you saying this is like new stuff, and I'm just going to believe in this new stuff.
Yeah.
At Iowa State, it's old stuff that's proven, but you don't believe in it. It's proven old stuff. You don't believe in it,
but I don't believe in it at the level that you believe in it. That is.
I'm happy to let you believe in new stuff because we're all just wondering about that. But not believing in proven old stuff, I find that wildly disrespectful. Although, if you would have applied this exact same logic to North Carolina 2 years ago,
yeah, exactly,
you would have looked like a genius on some level to some people, Dave Matthews fans. But to me, you know what I would have still said, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not joking around. I would have, if you would have ranked North Carolina 21st in the preseason 2 years ago when they missed the NCAA tournament, I would have told you you were still wrong. They just underperformed.
Well, that's not how this works.
That's how it works for me.
Once the results bear out the prediction, that's not how that works.
No.
Absolutely outrageous take by you. 26 through 50. I got Michigan State 26, Auburn 27, Xavier 28, Memphis 29. They might not even have their starting power forward. Cincinnati is 30. Cincinnati is 30th. Texas Tech is 31. Again, Virginia's 32. If I knew that Tony Bennett wasn't coaching, I thought about this. I probably put Virginia somewhere like 50 to 55. They're 78 at KenPom, by the way. Dayton at 33. That roster is somehow being slept on. Clemson 34, St. Mary's 35. Rutgers with the Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey duo. I didn't know what to do with Rutgers. I feel like I'm still maybe a little bit ambitious on Rutgers, but I went them 36, San Diego State 37, Terps at 38, Texas 39, Pitt 40, Oregon 41, A&M 42, Miami 43, Buckeyes of Ohio State 44, Georgia 45, Friars 46, New Mexico 47, Bradley, MVC Bradley 48, UAB 49, and Villanova 50. Real quick here, GP, some of the biggest disparities in my top 50. KenPom's got Villanova 20. I got him 50. KenPom's got A&M 16. I got him 42. KenPom's got Texas 18. I got him 39. Not in my top 50. KenPom has BYU 21. I have them 66th. I've got Bradley 48th. He's got him at 93. He's got UAB at 84. I just mentioned I got the Blazers at 49. That's just the start of it there. What team or teams stick out to you in that second grouping?
Auburn at 27. I've got Auburn at 10. I mean, we'll see, but we're way.
I tell you this. There. Let me just be quick on this. We talked about Iowa State. Iowa State and Auburn fans are the two ones that are the most angry at me. It's totally fine. I love you guys. I'm more in on the Iowa State roster than I am the Auburn one. And Auburn is at 27 because I think Janai Broom's got a good chance of being a first-team All-American.
You have Texas A&M at 42. I have Texas A&M at 11.
Yeah, I was spurned last year. I had A&M like 6th in the country, and that did not go well for me. And I do wonder, I mentioned this in my capsule, GP, do they rely on Wade Taylor too much? Does it become too much of a one-man show? And I pulled up, hold on, I'm interrupting you here, sorry, but I had the stat on A&M that I'm going to share with you that stuck out to me. How about this? So Buzz Williams, since he's gotten to A&M, every single team he has had has ranked outside. Every single team at A&M has been outside the top 150 in 2-point and 3-point percentage. Every single one. He's yet to have a good shooting team.
They're trying the best they can, man. Why you want to focus on all that?
That's part of why I got A&M down at 42.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm picking up on a theme here.
Okay.
TJ Otzelberger, stocky guy.
No, I'm not
Buzz
going.
Williams, stocky. Are you just going after short, stocky guys?
Oh,
and if so, am I next?
Who's my highest rated coach that's short and stocky? Kelvin Sampson's not short and stocky right now.
No, who is
and
short?
Hurley's not. No.
Bill Self's a little taller.
Yeah.
Matt
Mark
Painter's a small
short,
man.
But he's not stocky.
He's not stocky. He's put together real good.
Let me see. Is Mick Cronin? Yeah, he's not stocky.
I think Mick's thin. I think Mick.
You love his abs. We know that much.
I do love his abs. They're like Washington State, Oregon State abs.
TJ is the highest rated short and stocky coach.
and the next one, right?
Really not short.
What about how we describing Sean Miller's physique? He's not short, really.
Not stocky.
And not short. He doesn't even fit it at all. Tom Izzo, short, stocky?
Oh, good question. He's right on the line.
I don't think you get to label.
No, anyway, the answer to your question is no. I'm not biased.
Okay. But you can see why I asked, right?
Yeah. Who do I have lowest that you have highest? Do you know? Did you bother to look? You probably didn't. I'm wondering who your highest.
It's probably Texas A&M.
No, is it okay? I wondered if you had Ohio State ranked. I have Ohio State.
I do. I have Ohio State 15th.
Okay, so that's probably our biggest disparity. Is I've got the Buckeyes 44. Really good talent there. Just it's first year coach situation.
The dude popped first game. He just popped Matt Painter in the head. Next win, he popped Tom Izzo in the head.
I know. If you're watching on YouTube, Texas Tech, there we go. It's been a minute. Texas Tech at 31, and then once we got to Virginia at 32, like 32. Once we got to 44. Toss those teams in a blender, man, and then we move on. All right, Nada, let's go 51 through 100 here. Let's see. There we go.
Oh my God, I don't even recognize these schools.
What are you talking about? I think. Hold on. In all seriousness,
no chance.
You can't do that. Hold on. I'm not. I guess I won't ask you. If
that's
I
the Butler Bulldogs, and that's Grand Canyon, and that's Loyola, and Notre Dame, and the USF Bulls. I know most of them.
You can do this.
I mean, I probably could, but
you can do this. You know all of these logos. You can do this.
I would recognize Santa Clara anywhere.
Which one is Santa Clara?
I don't know. I was hoping that was Santa Clara over there. Is that USC?
That's you. Are you talking about 56? That's San Francisco.
No, what's 85? Isn't that Santa? What is that?
That's Santa Clara. Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah,
well,
I would know Santa Clara anyway.
Jump from where we were talking about in the 50s there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I see that Hawkeye. I would know that Hawkeye anywhere.
That's correct. Iowa must think I hate him. I got Iowa at 82, by the way. Big disparity. Ken Palm's got him like 33 right now. Not ideal. Not great there. I tell you what, though.
And Iowa State. The whole state's going to be coming for you.
Yeah, I know. It's not good for me. How about this, though, GP? Because of the amount of, like, last COVID year, so much transfer activity, and I wrote about this in my lead. So you've got all this expansion, and you've got 79 Power Conference, Big Five, Power Five, however we want to say it. The 4 football conferences and then the Big East. So there's 79 schools. I wonder how that's going to shake out by season's end. Like, are we going to look up and see all 79 in the top 100, 77 in the top 100? Because I did leave a few out because I wanted to give some shine to some mid majors. I'm just wondering how the Division I universe in men's college basketball is going to play out in this first year of 18 team power conferences in the last year of COVID and more transfer activity as much as we've ever seen. I don't know. To me, it made putting this together even tougher. Like, because I'll tell you what, like, I'm not satisfied. There are teams that I have slotted that I did so hesitantly, like USC at 77, TCU at 79, Missouri 81, Iowa 82, Louisville 83. Like, I'm not placing these teams with any amount of glee in those spots, but I'm also trying to look at the mid majors that I think are very likely to win their leagues and create high win totals. And as a result of that, likely push into the top 50, the top 60, the top 70 of a bunch of advanced metrics rankings. What are your thoughts on how high major teams across the board will wind up settling once we get to March in this new season?
Well, there's just always going to be some bad ones, I'm just glancing at it right now. The SEC had 3 teams finish outside of the top 100 at KenPom last season. The Big 12 had 2 teams finish outside of the top 100 last season. So these big power conferences, the 4 football playing ones plus the Big East, they're just always going to have some garbage at the bottom. And so
you think so, but I do wonder if the Big 12 is now a 16-team league and the SEC is a 16-team league. If those are going to be the top 2 conferences in the country, will all 16 teams wind up being top 100? I think there's a real chance that's the case, but I did not. SEC, that's not the case. And I might have left one Big 12 team out of there, but it got tough to do because recent history suggested that wouldn't be the case, specifically with the Big 12 GP. But yeah, I don't know. It was.
Georgetown finished 192 last year, and DePaul was 304.
Yes.
So there's just always going to be let's go to a different one.
Those both will be better. I don't have DePaul. I have Georgetown. That's a flyer. I put Georgetown 90th. I think Ed Cooley's his track record suggests he should have a stronger second.
Well, I guess just on a very surface level, click and look at it thing I've been doing for the past 45 seconds, it looks like there's 2 or 3 sub 100 teams in every power conference normally. That's I think that'll continue to mostly be true.
All right, let's do this right. Let's predict this now. Someone listen, track us, remind us during the tournament. We will not remember we did this. This happens all the time. 79 teams.
Yeah.
In the 5 high major leagues in men's college basketball.
Okay.
I'm going to set the over under. How many don't?
No, let's guess an exact number on Selection Sunday. How many teams from the
you want to Selection Sunday or at the end of the season?
Let's do a Selection Sunday because that's when we determine a lot of stuff, right? Let's do a Selection Sunday.
Okay, well, when you look at the KenPom rankings you're referencing right now, those are at the end of the season.
Okay, fine. Do it. I don't care. Do it whenever you want.
I will. Okay, I'm going to say how many of these 79 teams?
Remind me at all. I don't want to be reminded of this ever again.
How many of the 79 teams are finished in the top 100 at KenPom? I will say. I'll say 74.
Are going to finish in the top 100.
Yeah, I'll say 74 from the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and Big East will finish in the top 100. 74.
And I'll say it'll be 70. I'll say 70. You'll have 9 schools from those 5 conferences outside of the top 100. But Iowa State will not be one of them. Iowa State's going to be safely inside. No matter
they will be. I agree with you full. I am so on board with Iowa State being a top 100 team. I mean,
it doesn't feel like it. Doesn't sound like it.
I am. I tell you what, if you're right though, 70, my rankings collectively will age better because I think I'm somewhere in that realm. I don't think I have as many as 74 here. For the mid-major teams here, we're going to have a best of the rest preview, so I'll save a lot of the talk on them once we get to that podcast. I think that's going to be early next week there. But just real quick, some of the high majors that I put in there on the back end: Oklahoma State 97, Colorado probably going to take a big step back 98. I've got Arizona State 100. I got Penn State 95. As I mentioned, Georgetown's 90. Virginia Tech 88. I mean, there are some of these teams, GP, where it's Seton Hall, I have 72. I think in this 50 to 100, I think the 3 or 4 teams I'm most likely to be wrong about are Louisville at 83, Iowa at 82, BYU at 66. These, and by wrong, I mean they're going to be better than I have them. Mm-hmm. BYU at 66. And I've got Mississippi, Ole Miss. I've got them at 60. I think there's a chance that I could be misfiring and being too low on them. And then real quick, the ones that I'm too high on that I could prove to be wrong on. Notre Dame at 54 is a bit of a flyer. No question about that. I think that's more than anything. That's probably the one that at least after the top 50 there.
To me, the one's Ole Miss. I have Ole Miss on the verge of the top 25 and 1. I don't have them in there, but they're if I did a top 25 and 4, they'd probably be in there. So I think Ole Miss is an NCAA tournament team, and at 60, that suggests you don't think they are.
I do not. My cut line
Chris
is
Beard, short and stocky. Son of a bitch.
You know what? He's not as short as people think. I wouldn't say he's short and stocky. I would not say Beard's short and stocky. Are you, before you show it, Nada, are you aware of the team that's 101 on the list?
Me?
Yeah. You don't have any idea.
UMass Lowell?
No. Bring it up.
I mean, I have it right from
There we go. There's one logo. They made it for social. So if you're just listening, it was 25 per graphic card, if you will. So 25 times 4 is obviously 100. Math is fun. And we decided just to put Nebraska with its own little logo there. So I put the Cornhuskers.
I feel like they need that. I feel like they deserve that. I got to sit down with Fred at Big Ten Media Day, and that was pleasant. He was just coming off of his heart procedure.
Yes, indeed.
So it was good to see him. And Nebraska at 101, I'm certainly not going to argue with that.
If you want to take a full-on look, it's going to be linked in the It's going to be linked in the episode description. The algorithm, by the way, the algorithm is getting me again and again and again. First of all, I word counted this thing in the Google Doc that I wrote, and then when we put the same exact copy into our CMS, it added another like 1,800 words, which is outrageous. I don't know if it's counting conjunctions.
106-minute read.
It's not 106 minutes. In fact, I even checked in with our buddy Jeff Borzello, who gave it a read. He's like, you cruise with this less than an hour, no problem. That's correct. The algorithm, it's like when it says 100, it's like for third graders. That's my issue. It's like if you're a third grader and you want to say it's 106 minutes, I agree with you. There's just no chance. There's on no planet is any adult taking 106 minutes to read what I got out there. The algorithm gets me every single time.
I agree with that. There is no chance somebody is reading up for 106 straight minutes.
I agree with you.
Is it time to go?
That is a show.
All right.
That's a show.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend, Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again.
Shouts to Tribe. I put some Tribe behind me. Also got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Did you watch any of that yet or no?
I've only been watching baseball. I'm about to get my life back.
That's not a problem anymore, is it?
No, I'm about to get my life back. I'm gonna start watching some other stuff.
I haven't watched a lot of it yet, but you should definitely give it a look there. Hey, listen, I think you've been good about this. Mets get it 6 games into the LCS.
I'm happy. I'm fine. I'm not.
Come on now.
Hey, I didn't cry myself to sleep last night.
Yeah,
I was just happy that I was just happy that I got to sit there and October 20th, 2024, and watch Game 6 of the NLCS with my family. I was just happy to be able to experience that. I don't need much more else in life out of that. That's
GP and I will be at Media Days later this week. I'll be at Big East. He will be at Big 12. Our next scheduled episode is a Big East preview. To be determined when we are delivering that to you, but it will be coming later this week. We just have to see how our schedules line up and how we're going to present that to you, but just keep that in mind. At least one more episode coming this week, and please, no more retirements. Can we not have a coaching change before we start the season, please?
I hope so. But we'll see. You never know. You never know these days. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere. Subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. So please do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.